we can share the screen. Okay. Is everybody hearing me and seeing the screen?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Okie dokie. We are in Talmud-Brachos, Yud Daled Amud Beis 14B. It's about right in the middle of the page. But just back it up one line. Okay. Now the Mishnah said, Amr Shul ben Korcha, Loma Kodma Parsha Shema. Why does the Shema, the first section, come before the second and third section? And we said, because the first section discusses accepting the yoke of heaven and that you're going to accept that God is your Lord. And the second one talks about the actual doing of the mitzvahs. And the third one is a mitzvah of tzitzis that's only done during the day. Gemara now is going to give other reasons for the order of these paragraphs of the Shema. Tanya, we learned in a brisa that the order is for other reasons. Reb Shimon ben Yochai Omer, he says, B'dinhu, it makes sense, it's justified, it's logical, Sheyakdim Shema, that the first paragraph of Shema precedes the second paragraph, Livahayim Shema, of Vahayim Shema. Why? Because the one of the Shema discusses two aspects. Shezeh Lilmod, that this first one discusses one's obligation to learn Torah, okay, where it says, V'dibarta bam, you will speak words in Torah. So that's the first thing you have to do, is that you have to learn Torah. Whereas the second section of Vahayim Shema, V'zeh Lilamed, and this one is talking about teaching Torah. As you see, it says in the second paragraph, V'limadtem osam es b'nechem, and you shall teach them to your children. So it's obvious, first you've got to learn Torah yourself, and then you teach Torah. So that's why the first paragraph that talks about your obligation to learn Torah is in the first paragraph, while the second paragraph, your obligation to teach Torah, is the second paragraph. Okay, that's one, that's why the first precedes the second. And V'haya Shema Levayomer, and why does the second paragraph of V'haya Shema precede the third paragraph of Vayomer? Shezeh Lilmod V'zeh Lasos. For this section of V'haya Shema commands us to teach Torah, while the last one, Vayomer, is involved in performing mitzvos, because that's the mitzvah of tzitzis, and there's no mention of learning or teaching. So it comes out like this. The order of the three works like this. The first paragraph tells you the obligation for you to learn Torah. The second one is telling you your obligation to teach Torah. And the third one is to do mitzvahs, and that is the logical sequence of one's observance. So that's what Reb Shimon bar Yochai said. Now the Gemara is going to discuss, well, wait a minute, I don't know if that's necessarily accurate. It appears to be a little bit different than what he's saying. Gemara asks, Atu Shema Lilmod Espe, is it so that the first paragraph of Shema has learning Lamed Velasos Lespe? You seem to be implying that all the first paragraph has is learning Torah. Okay. And it doesn't have teaching Torah. It doesn't have performing mitzvahs. Like the way Reb Shimon bar Yochai says it, if you just look at what he says, he's saying the first one only talks about learning. Second one only talks about teaching. Third one only talks about doing. So he said, wait a minute, the first paragraphs got all three of them. What do you tell me the first one only has about learning? L'lamod v'lasos leispe, it doesn't have teaching and doesn't have doing. V'ksiv, let's look at that first paragraph again. Besides v'dibarta bam, you shall speak words of Torah, it says v'shinantam. V'shinanta means you shall teach Torah. Ukshartam, and you will tie the tefillin right around your arms and heads. Uchasaftam, and you'll write mezuzahs. So you got all three. That's the first point in the question. That's in the first section. Now let's go to the second section. V'su, and let's further continue. V'haya im shema, the second section. Lilamed hudespe, does it only have teaching? The lasos leispe, and doing it doesn't have? Vaksiv, it also says the doing as well. Ukshartam uksavtam, you shall bind the tefillin around your arms and head, and you will write the mezuzahs. So obviously we're not to understand Rav Shimon Bar Yochai in the cryptic way he said what he said. Ella, rather, this is what we have to understand what Rav Shimon Bar Yochai meant. He said, but it's logical that Shema should come before the second paragraph of Yom Shema. Shazeh, that the first paragraph has three things. Lilmod, Lalamed, Velasos. It has learning, teaching, and doing. V'hayim Shema, and the second paragraph comes before Vayomer, Shazeh, that this one of V'hayim Shema, Yeshbo Lilmod, Lalamed, Velasos, to teach and to perform. And Vayomer Ein Velasos Bilvad, and Vayomer only has doing. So now we have the clear understanding of what Rav Shimon Bar Yochai meant all along. The first paragraph of the Vishema has all three: learning, teaching, and doing. V'hayim Shema has teaching and doing, and Vayomer only has doing, and that's the three reasons. So it comes out, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai has given us another reason for the order of the three paragraphs, but now the Gemara is going to ask, what was wrong with Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha's reason that we gave in the Mishnah? The Gemara now asks, why did the Brisa have to give a different explanation for the sequence based on what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said? The Tepekle with Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha. Why didn't Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai learn the sequence the way Rabbi Shimon ben Korcha said? Where we said that first is accepting the yoke of heaven, second is accepting the yoke of mitzvahs, which is a very logical way of explaining that difference as well. So Gemara answers, Chadav Kamar. Right, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying, I'm not arguing with Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha, but I'm giving a second reason. In other words, Chada, there's a first reason that's very valid that Shema comes before V'hayim Shema. First, you accept the yoke of heaven first. And you accept the yoke of mitzvahs, as Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said. And then Rav Shimon Bar Yochai added, V'od, and also, it has all these other things, the mitzvah of learning, teaching, and doing, which is more than that. So it comes out, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai never meant to argue on Rav Yeshua ben Korcha. He's just saying that we have two separate reasons now, and they're both equally valid, why the Shema comes before V'hayim Shema, and why V'hayim Shema comes before Vayomer. Okay, that's that point. Okay, more now, moving on to other issues regarding the Shema. Okay, we're going to have a related story. Rav Moshe Yade. So once happened that Rav got up in the morning, washed his hands, Vikara Kriya Shema, and said the Shema, the Onach Tefillin, and only afterwards put on Tefillin, Vitsoli, and then he prayed. Okay. So the question is, now, was there something wrong with that order? So Gemara asks, how is he allowed to do that? What was the point is that he recited the Shema before putting on his tefillin. We're going to see in a minute that you're supposed to be saying the Shema with your tefillin on, the morning Shema at least. But Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, hachofer kuch lemes bekever. Let's say someone is busy digging one of those holes, these recesses in a burial chamber. Remember, in the days of Gomorrah, they buried people in a mountain. So there were chambers, and you would dig into the rock to create a chamber where you could slide the dead person in there. So there were burial chambers, and they discuss how wide it is, all this. So the person's busy doing the mitzvah of burying the dead. So if you're busy doing that mitzvah, we already learned that excuses you from other mitzvahs. Pater mikriya shema, you're exempt from saying the shema at that time. Umina tefillah, and from prayer. Umin tefillin, and from tefillin. And for that matter, we call mitzvahs amuras b'Torah, and all mitzvahs in the Torah, because you're engaged in the mitzvah of burying the dead. However, higias man kriya shema, when the time for the shema arrives, in other words, now you got to say the shema, so you can't miss the shema. So oila, you get out from that beneath surface that you're digging. The notel yadav, you wash your hands. Umeniach tefillin, and put on tefillin. V'korei kriya shema, and say the shema. Umispala, and you daven. Okay, so that's what the brisa says. So now, right away, there's a problem with the brisa in and of itself. We're not up to the question yet, but we're trying to understand the brisa first before we can ask the question. Ha gufa kasha. This itself is a difficulty within the brisa itself. Reisha Amar, you just said in the beginning, Potter, you're exempt from the Shema, right? The Seifa, and then the second part says, oh, but when it's time for Shema, you got to go say the Shema, Chayiv, now you're Chayiv. So how do you resolve the conflict within the brisa itself? So obviously there has to be an understanding for the brisa. The answer is holocaust. That's not a question. What the brisa meant to say is Seifa betray. The Seifa is talking if there's two people digging the grave. So if there's two people digging the grave, so now when it's time for the Shema, you're digging. When it's time for the Shema, they're going to take turns. One says the Shema while the other's digging, and then they switch again. Okay? Now, the important footnote here, this ruling applies where only one person's able to dig at a time. Thus, there's no delay in the burial if one of the two withdraws to perform these mitzvahs of tefillin, shema, and prayer. But where both men are able to dig at the same time, both are exempt from performing other mitzvahs in order to hasten the burial. Fine. But the point is, the Seif is talking where only one can bury at a time. So let the guy go and say the Shema and all that. But for Rachel, at the first case, it says you're exempt from the Shema is Bachad, is when there's only one fellow. Therefore, you're exempt. But here's the point. From the Seifa, you have the question on Rav. Mikol Mokom Kashel Rav. Now we have a question on Rav. Because what did the Brisa say? When there's two people, that what do? You put your tefillin on before you say the Shema, right? Remember what the order was of that Brisa. If there's two people, the guy goes out, he washes his hand, he puts on tefillin, he says the Shema after he puts the tefillin on. So what's this business that Rav said the Shema before he put on his tefillin? That's the question on Rav's behavior. Gemara answers, Rav, Rav Shua ben Korcha Svirale. Rav holds like Rav Shua ben Korcha, who holds the Omar, O Malchus Shamayim Tchila. He said that first we have to accept the yoke of heaven upon yourself. Remember, we had two reasons, right? The Acher Kach, all mitzvahs. And then you accept the obligation of the mitzvahs. Remember, we had two reasons for the order of the 3 paragraphs of the Shema. So if you hold like Yeshua ben Korcha, that the first paragraph is accept the yoke of heaven. And the second paragraph is described that you accept the yoke of mitzvahs. So that's exactly what Rav did, not just in theory, but in practice. Rav first accepted upon himself the yoke of heaven, which was by saying the Shema. And then he would actually do the mitzvahs of putting on the tefillin. So that's why he did what he did. That's more wants to say that's an answer to Rav, that he therefore fulfilled the teaching of Rabbi Shua ben Korcha, why the first paragraph comes before the second paragraph, and therefore he acted it out by saying the Shema, by accepting the yoke of heaven, and then by actually doing the mitzvahs, which is accepting the yoke of mitzvahs, or putting on tefillin. To which Gemara says, well, I don't know if you could base that on what Rabbi Shua ben Korcha said. Gemara says, Rabbi Shua ben Korcha lahaktim kriya l'kriya. Maybe only Rabbi Shua, all he was explaining is why we say the first paragraph before the second paragraph in terms of underscoring what a person's ideology should be. In other words, you're describing what your philosophy should be. It's that the first paragraph says you accept the yoke of heaven first, and then you accept the yoke of doing mitzvahs. And that's when you are reciting the Shema, that's what you're doing. But on the other hand, the actual kriya la'asiya mishamat le, did we ever hear Rabbi Shua ben Korcha say that the actual application is that we say we accept the yoke before we do the mitzvahs? Did he ever say that? He never said that. So you can't say that Rav's practice was according to Rabbi Shua ben Korcha. Rabbi Shua ben Korcha is saying when a person is saying the Shema, he is reviewing his philosophy. He's reviewing what the Jewish philosophy should be. What's your approach to Yiddishkeit? My approach is I accept the yoke of heaven, and then I accept the yoke of mitzvahs. That's mentally. So now that you've done that, and that's your philosophical approach as a Jew, good. Now go start living as a Jew. So now when you're living as a Jew, you don't have to go and every day accept the yoke of heaven before you do mitzvahs. That's just an overall thing. So how can you say that? That's number one. And number two question on that for Sue, and also me Savarle, Rabbi Shua ben Korcha, how do you can say that Rav even holds like Rabbi Shua ben Korcha, that you do the one before the other? Because Rav Chia Barashi says, Zimnan Saginon, many times, I stood before Rav, Umaktim, and he would rise early, Umashiyadi, and wash his hands, Umevorech, and recite the blessings of the Torah, Umaslan Pirkin, and would teach us our Torah, and then afterwards, Umanach Tfilin, then he would put on Tfilin, Vahadar Kare Kriyashma, then would put on Kriyashma. So we see clearly that Rav disagreed with that point, and you see that he put on the tefillin on before he said the Kriya Shema. So therefore, why did we have that other case where Rav didn't do that? So that's the point. We see that he actually normally did put on his tefillin and then say the Kriya Shema. So why do we have that story in the beginning where he washed his hands, he said the Shema, and then put on the tefillin? So we're trying to still explain why did he do what he did. And now you're going to say, well, wait a minute, maybe it is bidalo matazman kriya shema. Okay, it could be. You know why he said the in that case is where he put the tefillin on. It speaks where the proper time for the Shema had not yet come. So that's why he gave precedence to teaching the Torah. So in Cain, Maya Sudusi. So then what's the testimony to Rav Chia Barashi if it wasn't really a normal situation? So unless you want to say, La Fuke Miman Davamar, but maybe you want to say, he's saying that maybe he's trying to teach us to go outside the one who says, La Mishnah and Tzarech Levarech. Maybe the reason we're stating what he did was he said Birchas HaTorah, because maybe there is an opinion that says you don't have to say Birchas HaTorah, you're just teaching Mishnayos. So maybe he came to teach us that he said Birchas HaTorah, even though he's only teaching Mishnayos. So Kamash Malan, the Chiddush is, the Afla Mishnah, Nami Tzarech Levarech, even if you're teaching Mishnayos, you have to make a bracha. So that's why they mentioned it, even though it had nothing to do with the fact that it wasn't this time yet to say the Kriya Shema. But still in all, we still have our question. Mikol Makom Kashel Rav. It's still a question on Rav. How do we have that first story where he said the Shema without the tefillin? So you know what the answer is? The answer is you always got to check out your sources. The answer is Shluchahu David. Davis. He had a messenger who was supposed to bring his tefillin, and he came late. Okay. In other words, the shliach didn't bring him his tefillin on time. So now what's Rav supposed to do? What do you do if someone's supposed to bring you your tefillin in the morning and they don't bring you the tefillin? And now it's time to say the Shema. What are you going to do? Not say the Shema on time because you don't have your tefillin on? So the answer is yes, Rav, of course, put his tefillin on before he said the Shema. There's no question about that. The reason we find one story where Rav didn't put his tefillin on before the Shema is where the messenger was late. And therefore he had to say the mitzvah of saying the Shema, and then he would have to wait to get his tefillin. So the whole question was based on not knowing the entire story, if you understand the entire story, you see that he would have normally put his tefillin on before he would have said the Shema. But we also learn parenthetically, if you don't have your tefillin, you definitely should be saying the Shema. So now, and that leads us to the next statement of Ula, which really is all predicated on. Omar Ula says, Ula, call a kari below tefillin, anyone who says Kriya Shema without tefillin. Now, we're not talking about on Shabbos, obviously, and we're not talking about a person who doesn't have tefillin handy. We're talking about a person who has the tefillin. So kalakare kriya shema below tefillin, anyone who reads the Shema without tefillin on, when he could have had the tefillin on, kilu me'id edus sheker ba'atzmo. It's like he's uttered a false testimony upon himself. Okay, and here himself really is a euphemism for Hashem. Why? Because let's see what's going on now. When you put tefillin on, you are fulfilling the verse that you are saying in the Shema that says you will bind them as a sign upon your arm and as totafos between your eyes, right? So when you have tefillin on and you're fulfilling that verse, you are verifying the fact that Hashem is one and he's the one you listen to. When you're saying the Shema, you're verifying that. But now, if you're saying the Shema and you're not wearing the tefillin, it's like you're disagreeing with what God had to say. In other words, you're saying God is one, and he's the one, and therefore this is what you do because he's one. Because Hashem is one, you learn his Torah and you put on tefillin. That's part of the message of accepting that God is your king, because that binds you to Hashem. And you say, well, God is one, but I don't have to do things that bind me to Hashem. So it's like saying a false testimony. It's not really true. Or others say it's the person himself when you say it without wearing the tefillin, because it's like you're making a false statement that I say God's one, but I don't necessarily live that God is one. So that's a very important rule, that you've got to have your tefillin on when you're saying Shema under normal circumstances.
Rabbi,
Yes?
when in the winter, in the dead of winter, when we put on our tefillin without a bracha, and then we say the Shema, so
Right.
is it considered that the tefillin is not really on because we didn't say the bracha yet? Because
No.
there are also those, I think there are those who don't actually do that. They just wait until the right time. I could be mistaken, but I think there are those who, instead of putting the tefillin on and then saying the bracha when it's the right time, much later, that they just wait to put on the tefillin. I could be mistaken, but I think some people do that.
Again, we don't. It's a whole complicated thing, but the main point is, number one, when we're putting on our tefillin first, without the bracha, the tefillin are on. There's no question tefillin are on. If you have tefillin on, the bracha is just a rabbinic rule that you should have kavanah for what you're doing when you put your tefillin on. So let's say you're putting on your tefillin before the Zman tefillin. Then, as we're in the middle of davening, and even by Borcha was before the Zman tefillin. Okay, but now we're saying the Shema, and let's say it now at that time we're saying the Shema. It's the time to say the Shema, but we can't interrupt and make a bracha on the tefillin. We clearly have our tefillin on when we're saying the Shema. At other times, when it's the real dead of winter, even when we're saying the Shema, it's not even the time to say the Shema. So then that's for sure not an issue, because that Shema you're saying is not fulfilling the midst of saying the Shema. And that's why after davening, we say the Shema over, and we're keeping our tefillin on when we're saying the Shema over. So that's for sure fine. Other people, there are people who do that, but I don't know how they keep pace with the minyan, because the mitzvah is to daven the tzibur, and I don't know how they're able to do that. But anyway, we're okay, because
but Rabbi,
the way the tefillin are on. Yeah.
According to this, it's a real problem if you have to leave to go to work and you say your Shema when you get to work without your tefillin on. According to this.
Well, I guess you have to say it's a situation you don't have a choice. Let's say, for example, a person has some stomach issues. You have stomach issues. All right, you're not allowed to wear tefillin when you have stomach issues, right? So what do you do if it's time to daven? What do you do? It's time to daven. Well, you daven without your tefillin. There's no choice, right? You're not allowed to have tefillin on when you have serious stomach issues. Well, you could still daven. So you're davening. So then what are you doing? You're saying Shema, you're saying the Amidah. And then later on in the day, when your stomach is better, you put on your tefillin, right? Now, even then, you're putting on your tefillin, it would be better to then say the Shema with the tefillin on. Okay, but so those people, yeah, it's people who will rush out to go to work, unfortunately, have to compromise on a lot of things in their davening. So I would agree it's not an optimal way of doing it because it comes out, first of all, you have to hope they're remembering to say the Shema over. And when they're saying the Shema over, really it would be optimal to put their tefillin on, but so it is. I can't justify it necessarily.
I know for me, when I was in that situation, I would be worried about forgetting to say it. Once you leave, you probably have a good chance of forgetting to say it,
right?
Or not.
It's also true.
Yeah. Other question is, so I know at night, obviously you don't put on the tzitzis is not required, but like we're saying the Shema again at night, but according to this, should we put it on our tefillin at night? Because we're saying the same words.
Because tefillin is not a time, you cannot put tefillin on at night. You're not allowed to put tefillin on at night.
So in the old days when they would wear it all day, they would take it off at night?
Yes.
So where do we learn that you don't wear tefillin at night? Like with tzitzis, it's obvious. You have to.
Gemara says because you could fall asleep in your tefillin and things like that. Nighttime, people are tired. So you're going to get drowsy and then you could pass gas and things like that when you're asleep. You cannot have tefillin on when you're sleeping. Let's say you're wearing tefillin all day long. You want to take a nap. You don't take a nap with your tefillin on. Okay, people who are wearing tefillin all day long are big tzaddikim, of course, and they ain't sleeping during the day. So by the nighttime, you have to take off your tefillin because that's the time when you can fall asleep. Okay, so let's just finish the last line to get to the two dots. Amar Rab Chiya bar Abba, Amar Rab Yochanan, anyone who says the Shema without tefillin, it's not only it's a false testimony, but he says kilu hikriv ola below mincha. It's like you brought a korban ola without the mincha, the meal offering that accompanies it. Every ola offering has to have a mincha offering of flour. So you say the Shema without putting on the tefillin on, it's like you did a korban without now you were yotze, the korban ola is, you've done the mitzvah, bring the ola, but you haven't done the mitzvah perfectly because you forgot the mincha. And also, or it's like you brought a zevach or any kind of sacrifice below nesachim without the wine libations. We know that after an ola or a shlamim is brought, there's a wine libation. So therefore, that's what Rabbi Chiya is saying. It's like you're not doing, just like if you bring a korban without the other things, it's okay, but it's not done the best way. The same thing with the Shema, the same way. So what's the difference between these two opinions now? Between Ula and Rabbi Yochanan, what first one said it's a false testimony. So according to Ula, if you say the Shema without wearing tefillin, without wearing tefillin completely fulfills the mitzvah of reciting the Shema, but sins by declaring a false testimony. He says, you said the Shema, but it's a false testimony. Rabbi Yochanan, you've lacked the mitzvah of reciting the Shema properly because it's like an ola without a mincha. So that becomes the difference. Have you said the Shema? That's fascinating to say the first shot is saying you did the mitzvah completely, but you said a false testimony. While the second rabbi says you didn't even fulfill the mitzvah properly. So therefore we see from here, unless you're not well, you always have the tefillin on in the morning before you're saying the Shema. Okay, perfect place to stop. Bottom of the page, two dots. Just want to check next week. Is everybody okay to learn Monday and Tuesday? Yes, just give me Monday.
Yeah.
Wednesday, I think we're going to be a little too busy getting ready for Pesach, I believe. So let's just...
we'll do Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, have a good day, everybody.
Have a good day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.